Rock music is distinctly an American music. Rock and roll started in this country in the 1950s, with its origins in African American rhythm and blues, country, and gospel music. The term rock and roll was coined by a disc jockey. Recordings and radio made it more widespread. The first known rock and roll recording was Rocket 88. Your early performers were Chuck Berry, Bill Haley, and Elvis Presley. The elements of rock and roll are, in tone color, you have a guitar, a lead guitar, a bass guitar, drums, vocals, and keyboard. For melody, we have short, repeated phrases. For texture, it's usually homophonic. Your dynamics are usually loud. The form is usually AABA. The harmony, 3 to 4 chords are used in a 12-bar format. The rhythm is usually 4/4 time. In the decade of the 1960s, various genres within rock started, such as soul, folk rock, and heavy metal, acid rock, and blues rock. Rock by black performers is called soul. Folk rock was spurred by the protest against the war in Vietnam. Bob Dylan is an example of a folk rock performer and writer. The significance of this was that it showed that rock music could address serious social issues. It's believed that the term heavy metal was coined by Jimi Hendrix, the great rock guitarist. And acid rock was music set as a background to an acid trip. Blues rock is blues with a rock beat. The Beatles started the British invasion. They were the most influential group in rock history. They explored musique concrète, that 20th century music term, Indian traditional instruments. Blues rock began in the 1960s. Blues rock is a blues chord progression combined with a rock beat. We have call and response, a vocal and instrumental, and electric guitar improvisation. The 1960s also saw the start of the Beatles, the most influential rock group ever. They were influenced by English folk songs, American rhythm and blues, or Chuck Berry, and the lyrics of Bob Dylan. They also used hallucinogenic drugs for a brief time, which of course influenced their music. They had a greater harmonic vocabulary and would change meter frequently. They were started in the 1960s. In the 70s, the 60s styles continued. A genre of dance music called disco began along with country rock, which is a blend of country and rock. Reggae started in the 70s too, from the West Indies, led by Bob Marley. Funk, another term, which is electrification and jazz-like rhythms. Punk or new wave, which is a primitive form of rock, started in the 70s. And jazz rock, which is fusion. An example of this would be the group Weather Report. Classical rock started in the 70s. That's classical music set to a rock beat. Heavy metal also continues. And hard rock starts in the 70s. Let's dig into these genres a little more. In heavy metal, you have highly amplified music. It's harsh sounding and it has a strong beat. Characteristically, they use violent or fantastic imagery. There is the use of the power ballad. Heavy metal is said to have been originated by the rock group Led Zeppelin. In the 1980s, British new wave bands became popular. This is known as the Second British Invasion. An example of this is Duran Duran. You find an increased use of electronic technology, synthesizers and computers especially, in the background. And rap or hip-hop begins too. Rap was started in New York City in the 1980s. It began as rhythmic talking accompanied by a disc jockey. It's really voice spoken in rhythm. You have realistic lyrics often reflecting anger and frustration, and computerized or synthesized background music. An early group was and is Run DMC. In the 1990s, grunge or alternative rock is embraced. With grunge, you have grinding guitar sounds and angry lyrics, and a rejection of the commercialism in rock. Examples are Nirvana and Pearl Jam. The first grunge or alternative song to become a hit was Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Metallica is a heavy metal band which began in the 90s. In heavy metal, the power ballad is used frequently. Power ballads usually explore a heartbreak theme. Also in the 90s, the rapper Jay-Z becomes and has his first big hit. Politics as Usual, it's called. Today, he's one of the most successful rappers in the business. He even has a clothing line. In the 2000s and beyond, you have new digital technology. Laptronica, that's a new term you'll have to know, is a form of live electronic music in which laptops are used as musical instruments. And also, dubstep begins. Women certainly have contributed to rock music. Let's look at the pop diva Pink, whose real name is Alicia Beth Moore. She started in R&B, that's rhythm and blues, and then evolved into a harder style, moving away from cookie-cutter pop into more adventurous material. Avril Lavigne is another female rock musician. She writes and performs her own material. She started out in pop and pop punk, but like Pink, she is moving away from the pop mainstream. Now more information about dubstep. It originated in Southeast London in 1998 and spread to the United States within 10 years. It's actually electronic dance music prepared in the studio. It has tightly controlled productions with overwhelming bass lines, very reverberant drum patterns, clipped samples, occasional vocals. Rock really continues to evolve. Common is the mixing of genres within rock. That's one.
What's that?
That's one where you really get a skeletal thing.